What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Stardust here. Welcome to a new video here on the YouTube channel. Today, we're discussing something that is pretty relevant now that Guardians of the Galaxy is out worldwide. You can find two parts that I did playing through the game on the extra content playlist, but let's get right into this right now. So I did this tweet a couple of days ago that absolutely banged. Cheers for that. And basically, it's me explaining why just because Avengers may not have been for you doesn't mean you shouldn't give Guardians a try. Now, I'm going to read my tweet because this was before the game released, and I'm going to put a bit more context into that now that I've played the game. So I said, it's really weird how people think Avengers wasn't very good, will not try Guardians. This literally only makes sense if it was another live service, and even then, I put then, but I meant then, it's a different development team. It just painfully shows how little interest you had in Guardians anyways. Now, what I mean by that is that essentially, when the game first came out, people instantly wrote it off because of the Square Enix branding. Now, I think that I understand why that's the case. I also think that was a very unfair notion to have. The game looked drastically different from anything that Avengers was doing. It had a bit of a weird premise with Star-Lord being the only playable character, but it instantly, to me, just screamed like something that was probably going to be alright, because in case you guys haven't noticed, but like the times that we've had single player Marvel games have actually been relatively good since Spider-Man, right? You know, Spider-Man and Miles were fantastic games, and even though then it went over to a new different development team with Avengers, every single ongoing game from Marvel has been controversial, to say the least, right? We had Marvel Heroes that eventually died its death, and we've had Avengers that has been in a very weird spot, to say the least. So seeing a new single-player game for me, regardless of what was on the bill, just seemed like kind of a game that was definitely going to do well regardless, and it clearly did, because the reviews on it are 7s to 10s, so that's amazing. You know, and the fact that it isn't a live service, and it still isn't, is a single player, you know, absolute dash to the finish kind of story mode. To me, it just made so much sense that it wasn't going to be your standard affair. It was going to be absolutely, you know, nice, clean-cut, sort of cool story. And I find it really difficult in my head that when you had a team like the Guardians, that it was going to be bad in the first place. But, you know, again, I understand that maybe the publishers, you know, name on that may have caused some issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down, and I'm actually going to look at a few of the replies. So, I agree with your sentiment, but it's easy to see why, considering Square published both and Eidos Montreal helped out with Avengers, and their past couple of games didn't get particularly great reception. Now, I definitely understand this take completely, but here's the thing, right? Crystal Dynamics, before Avengers came out, released absolute banging Tomb Raider games, right? Now, they ventured into a world that they were incredibly unfamiliar with, and that caused Avengers to be a thing. Eidos Montreal definitely dipped their toes into something relatively quite new, but due to the fact that they weren't being pushed constantly, just because it's a single-player game, there isn't a live service element there, you have a chance to be able to, you know, still stick into somewhat of a realm you're comfortable with, and not have people in suits telling you, no, do this, do that, right? So, I would sort of see that as a totally different ball game, and now that the game is released, I'm glad that I was kind of right in feeling the way that I did. I'm not dropping a penny to this company till I see finished product, even then it will be hard to support their teams. It doesn't really make sense to me, this notion, because, you know, I understand, I'm not saying buy the game, I'm saying that, like, give it, you know, looking at it, giving it a fair chance, not writing it off straight away just because of the failings of Avengers, it just makes sense to me. And the reason I'm pushing this so hard, and the reason I'm doing this video today is because I've played 1,000 hours of Avengers, I played 5 hours of Guardians. I can safely say they're two completely different experiences, and I definitely think the Guardians deserve to be looked at, even if you are so anti-Avengers. If you're into Avengers, you'll love this, because my god, this game absolutely nails some of the things that Avengers just doesn't get right, you know. But again, I'm not into the comparison game, but I just think that if you are going to compare, you know, it needs to make sense, right? It just needs to make sense. But my point earlier with Crystal Dynamics with Tomb Raider is they made those great Tomb Raider games. I bet people didn't think Avengers would end up the way it is, right? You might not like Deus Ex games, you might love Guardians of the Galaxy. There is completely ways of doing this. Insomniac are absolute geniuses, but when they get to the multiplayer game they've got coming out, there's a fair chance that that game is going to be absolutely dog shit, just because it's a big multiplayer game and they're stepping into a realm that they're not quite familiar with. So, I think that if you take each game as it comes, when it comes to the Marvel branding, you are going to be pretty happy with the result, right? I understand Avengers is a pretty scary time, but I'm still a player of Avengers. I'm still going to be playing the Raid and Spider-Man in November or December or whenever the fuck it's coming out. I mean, it has to be this year, but you get what I'm saying. And I'm enjoying Guardians, and I think that, you know, now being a Marvel fan, it's such an amazing time to have all these options, and I think that if you don't like one, I think you're doing yourself a disservice for not looking at all the others, because wow, I think it's amazing, because when I was playing those Sega games, the movie tie-ins, I didn't think for a single second that we would be able to experience multiple Marvel games at once, with Spider-Man, with Guardians, with Avengers, soon to be Midnight Sun, soon to be Wolverine. It's a great time to be a Marvel fan, especially in the gaming space. So, without giving you a review of Guardians, please make sure to check it out, regardless of how reluctant you are given Avengers. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Clearly, I'm a Guardian shill, by the way. You can call me Guardian shill if you want, it's fine. I am! Fuck it! I just Montreal!